Hi, I'm Todd Fahnestock, author of the Colorado Authors League Award finalist fantasy novel, Tower of the Four. Today, I'm going to give you a little hook for the book, then read a bit from the text, chapter 11 to be precise, from the book. So, here we go. Here's the hook. Okay, so there's two kingdoms in this fantasy land. There's Celtivar and there's Fendir. Celtivar is like the sort of medieval England kind of culture, okay? So Knights of the Round Table, knights in shining armor, that kind of thing. Fendir is a woodland culture, okay? Druid priestesses, warrior druids, and they have been fighting over a stretch of forest called the Hallowed Woods for 30 years. They've been fighting, right? Lots of blood, lots of casualties in this war. Now, there's a third faction called the Champions Academy. And here's the cover of the book, and it's called the Champions Academy. So, the Champions Academy is a magic school, and it is run by these four benevolent demigods known as, appropriately, the Four, okay? And what they do is they reach out into the two kingdoms, and it doesn't matter whether you're Celtivari or you're Fendiran, it doesn't matter if you're rich or you're poor, they're looking for magical talent. And if you have magical talent, they will bring you to the Champions Academy to teach you how to use magic. Because in this world, it is very difficult to learn magic. There are four paths: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And you have to choose one path and stay with that. That's your path for the rest of your life. But there's a catch in addition to that. You can't just go study this on your own. You can't just go study the emotional path to magic by looking at a book full of spells and figuring it out, right? Even if you had an instructor, you couldn't do it because you need the three other paths to magic to make the sort of the whole complete, right? So you have to bond with three other people. All right, so enter our main character, Brahm. Brahm is this middle-class kid, so in this world he's the son of a builder, so he's not a noble, but he's not poor either. And the thing he wants the most in all the world is to be a hero. And so when the collector shows up, and the collector is the quadrant that comes and collects all the young people. Oh, and I should mention, quadrant in this world is wizard. So when I say quadrant, I mean wizard. So when the collector comes to tell Brahm that he gets to come to the school, he's like, woohoo! I get to go be the hero that I always wanted to be. Okay, so, but when he shows up to the school, he finds out that his quad is comprised of some very at odds people, okay? So, first of all, we've got the arrogant, haughty princess of, and when I say haughty, I mean Haughty, as opposed to the other version of haughty. She's just very arrogant, right? And then we've got the brutish warrior druid from Fendir. So they are enemies from the very get-go, the two of them. And then in the background here, you can see this little person in the background. That is Vale, and she's a street urchin. And 4 days ago, she was on the verge of starvation, right? And she thinks they're all entitled jerks and doesn't want to work with any of them. So Brahm, poor Brahm, this is Brahm, has to get them to work together in order to learn magic. Otherwise, his dreams of being a quadrant, kaput. Can't learn the magic, okay? So as he struggles to try and get them together, to work together, they discover a secret that no one knows. The benevolent Four might not be so benevolent after all. In fact, this entire Champions Academy might be a trap, like a Venus flytrap that's meant to draw in all the magical talent from both kingdoms and put it in one place to do something horrible to it. So I won't tell you any more about the hook. I'll move on to the reading. So here is the reading from Vale's perspective when she decides to finally bond with the quad. Okay, here we go. Vale had been 7 years old when her mother had died. In Mother's last moments, she had lain in a little alley outside the Wayward Inn, racked with the mud fever and hacking up bloody chunks of her lungs. Vale had held Mother's cool hand while, just a thin wall away, travelers and locals laughed and drank by a warm fire. "Why won't they help us?" Vale had asked her, scared of the mud fever, scared of being alone. The wealthy of Torliok looked at Vale and her mother like rats. They weren't seen as people, just something vile to avoid. Make a face and kick it away. Vale had already gone into the Wayward Inn, tried to get someone to come help her mother, but a man had kicked her in the side so hard something had cracked, and now it hurt every time she moved. "Why do they hate us?" she had asked. "We are the Dark Horses," Mother had told her, her face as pale as a noble and as gaunt as a skull wrapped in skin. Vale had known in that fated moment that her life was about to change forever. She was going to lose Mother. Mother was going to die, and Vale was going to be alone. No one... Mother had begun, then coughed. The cough had turned into 3 coughs, then into a racking fit. For a breathless moment, Vale had thought those would be Mother's last words, that she would die before finishing. But the spell had subsided, and Mother had continued in a thin, whispery voice. They are the pretty white horses. They feed and brush each other, but not us, not the dark horses. But the dark horses are special. Special? When they catch the sunlight. When they catch the sunlight just right. They flash more brilliantly than the white horses ever could. That is you, my little Vale. It is you and all the other dark horses. You must catch the sunlight. You must make yourself brilliant. And when you do, you must do the same for all of us, all of the dark horses, because they never will. They never will. Her voice had begun to fade. You could be that sunlight, Vale, shining upon the dark horses. Make them brilliant. And then Mother had stopped talking. Her hand had gone cold, and that was the end. Make them brilliant, Vale. 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 Vale! Vale's head snapped up. Princess Oriana and Royal had stopped on the lawn and turned back to look at her. Beyond them, other students played athletic games in the sun or sat in the shade of trees. Brahm had come back for her. Vale stood in the dormitory's shadow, right at that line between darkness and light. The beautiful white horses, of course, stood in the sunshine. Jealousy raged inside her. She shoved it down. You've all opened your soul blocks, she said tightly to Brahm. They were the laughing, drinking, callous patrons of the Wayward Inn all over again. They were kicking her to the side like a rat. You've used magic, all of you. Yes, Brahm said. He extended his hand and it crossed from light into shadow. She twitched but didn't take it. Vale, Brahm said softly, as though reading her mind. We have to trust each other. That's the key. Trust us. Just this once, and you'll see. The truth twisted inside her. She'd seen the change in Oriana and Brahm. They'd found that trust. And then Oriana had done the same with Royal, striking a spark that Royal had made into a flame. You're going to replace me, she said, waiting for Brahm to lie to her, to sling soft words of comfort and ask her to calm down. No, Oriana interrupted with authority before Brahm could answer. The tall woman strode forward, joining Brahm at the line between light and darkness. Vale flicked a glance from one to the other as Royal came up, his hulking form looming behind Oriana. Is that so? Vale sneered. You think I don't see how you look at me? You'd happily cut me from this quad like a bad limb. No, you are my quad mate, Oriana said firmly, and I will not give you up. Nor will I, Royal echoed in his deep voice. Their gazes promised protection, promised to stand between Vale and those who had hurt her. A pleasant warmth spread through her, and she hated herself for it. It couldn't be real. They were the white horses, so they had to be lying. The white horses didn't care about the dark horses. They weren't like her. They made a mistake, Vale, throwing us together, Brahm said softly. She looked up into his dark eyes. They thought they'd make the worst quad in the school, but they made the strongest instead. And not in spite of you. Because of you. He gave a little wiggle to his extended hand, invited her again. She didn't know what to do. They were everything she hated, what she'd sworn to always hate. White horses like these had let her mother die. She desperately wanted to become a quadron. But to bond herself to these, the worst of the white horses, they would betray her. As sure as the sun rose, they would cast her aside. It was inevitable. I don't know, she said. "I do," Brahms said. "Take my hand." She'd have to step to grab it. Step into the light. His words from a moment ago floated in her mind, refusing to go away, like they were important somehow. They made a mistake, throwing us together. They thought they'd make the worst quad in the school, but they made the strongest instead. The princess, the Fendirin, the builder's boy, all enemies. The collector had done this on purpose. He'd thrown them all together, never thinking they'd succeed, never wanting them to succeed. He had sabotaged this quad, taking the powerful and turning them into misfits. Taking the white horses and turning them dark. Vale's view of her quad mates pivoted so abruptly she gasped, and she saw them with new eyes. Not a perfect princess, but a broken one. Not a righteous giant, but an impotent one. Not a reckless boy, but a frustrated one. They were the dark horses, all of them. Make them brilliant. She stepped into the sunlight and grasped Brahms' hand. Her soul block burst open inside her, spilling magic into her body. With a cry of joy, she flung her magic out at them like a whip. She felt Royal's honest conviction. She felt Oriana's adamant determination and Brahms' giddy excitement. Their emotions flooded through her, and for the first time in her life, she felt that flash of sunlight that her mother had spoken of. That flash that made her brighter than all the others. "Brilliant!" she gasped, and tears slid down her cheeks. All right, so that's Tower of the Four, just a little taste. Again, I'm Todd Fahnestock. Thank you so much for listening to my hook and to my reading, and I look forward to seeing you in the pages of novels wondrous and imaginary. So until next time, I'll see you later.